Okay, so with a quadratic formula, this is when you're given a quadratic equation that's something like this. And again, this is going back to the factoring stuff that we were doing, working through those parts, graphing quadratics, doing all those things. We did the factoring after this one. But so if factoring doesn't work, this is basically your option that you're going to do to find out what the answers are. This is the formula you get to use that will give you the answer every single time. So it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. And now, when you see these, like in the textbook, if you see this, if you're doing the viewing example in this one, you won't see the parentheses. But again, I'm one of those firm believers that anytime you plug in numbers, because you're going to plug in your A and your B and your C values, every time you plug in your numbers, make sure that you use parentheses, because especially inside this square root, that's going to help you out for this part. Okay. Now, and again, what's inside the square root? This B. So in the homework, I'm going to put this over on the side. If you look through the view and example or anything like that, the formula is not going to have the parentheses. That would just look like that. But again, if you're going to start using calculators, which again, we're all going to be using calculators for a lot of these problems, with the parentheses, it does work a little bit better. And especially this negative b, if you do it like this, a lot of times people forget about the negative. So if you put this in the parentheses, it makes it stand out just a little bit more. Okay, so again, calculator is this. If you're looking in the textbook or Math Excel, any place like that, they don't use the parentheses. They're just going to have it written like this. It looks neater, but this is better when you actually start working this one out, because this will give you fewer errors when you start working with the problems. Okay, in this part that's on the inside of the square root, it's something kind of big. I don't know if you did this way back when, if you even talked about this part, but it's called the discriminant. And that's equal to this on the inside part of it here. That's equal to b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so the biggest thing you want to do for this part of it, and here's why this is kind of important. Based on what the discriminant is, it's going to tell you how many answers that you're looking for. And here's what we're looking at. So if b squared minus 4ac, if that is greater than 0, which basically means if b squared minus 4ac is positive, you have 2 answers. Zoom that out just a little bit. Okay, so if you're discriminant, if the b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, if it's positive, you have 2 answers that you're going to have for this thing. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, you have 1 solution or 1 answer. Sometimes they call it answers, sometimes it's solutions, sometimes they call them roots. These are the x. If we were graphing these would be the x-intercepts. So I have a million different names, but still it's the answer, it's the solution, it's the root, it's whatever it is that we're looking for. All right, and then if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, if it's negative, you have, we're going to say it this way, you have no real solutions. With a but for this one. So if it's greater than zero, two solutions. If it equals zero, you get one solution. If it's less than zero, you have no real solutions. But this is where we're working with our complex or imaginary numbers. But now if that's a negative number inside the square root, you'll have two imaginary answers. All right, and for Math Excel, and test wise, I have to be the same thing on this one. I have to be specific on this one of asking you, you know, the question will probably say something like this: that find the number of solutions. If the answer is imaginary, make sure you use the I variable, something like that. So in the directions, I have to specifically say what to do if that value happens to be negative. Some of them will just say to list the number of solutions. If it's negative, just put no real solutions for this one. So I have to be specific of what we're going to do for this one when it comes off of this part. Okay, so here's and that's it. We're looking at those two things today. We're looking at using the quadratic formula to find your answers, find your solutions. And we're also going to use the discriminant to tell how many answers, how many real number solutions we're going to have for this thing. Okay, so here's the directions for everything we'll do for everything with the quadratic formula for this part. We're going to use the discriminant. To find the number of real solutions. Okay, so that was the setup for everything today. This is the directions. These are the examples we do. So we're going to use the discriminant to find the number of, again, the real solutions, to know how many real solutions we're going to have, whether that's 2, 1, or none. And then we're going to find the solutions. Okay, and again, for this part, we're going to say that if there are imaginary solutions, use the variable I. Okay, and again, that will be kind of the option for that one. So in Math Excel, when you're working through these,
Does it Math Excel? If we have Math Excel, does that mean that we get multiple tries, multiple attempts on question?
Get 2 attempts. All right, so here we go. So example 1, we're going to go x squared plus 5x plus 6.
Yeah, because I have to
All right, so okay, so A value is 1, B value is 5, C value is 6. And again, the very first thing we're going to do is going to use the discriminant to figure out how many answers we're looking for. So that's B squared minus 4AC. And again, if you put those numbers in parentheses, that is 6 squared minus 4 times A times C. Oh, wait, sorry. 5 squared. 5 squared minus 4 times A times C. Let me try that again. Let me, not for the discriminant, no. Yeah, let me try that again. That's 5 squared minus 4 times A times C. Yeah, when I wrote it down, I was like, that's not right. Okay, and again, with the parentheses, if you're not a big fan, if you're like, I'm going to mess up numbers, use your calculator to plug it all in. That is parentheses. 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. And greatly enough on this one, this answer comes out to be 1. Okay, and then you're looking for, okay, so the answer is 1. 1 is positive. And because the answer is positive, that means we're looking for 2 real solutions. Okay, so we know we're looking for 2 solutions. Now we're going to go figure out what those 2 solutions are, and that's where we get to use the formula. Now here's the good thing too with this one. When we use our formula, when we've got the negative b plus or minus the square root of, we know that this b squared minus 4ac is 1. That answer will go inside here. It's the square root of 1 over 2 times a. So it's the negative of, again, b was 5, plus or minus, the square root of 1 is just 1 over 2 times 1, which is just 2. Okay, and that's the benefit of doing the discriminant first, is that the hardest part of your formula is done, that you're getting this b squared minus 4ac to then take the square root of it. All right, and then once you're here, this is where you get to split up in 2 cases. One time you're going to do negative 5 minus 1 divided by 2. The other time you're going to do negative 5 plus 1 divided by 2. So that's negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. This is negative 4 over 2, which is negative 2. And there's your 2 solutions that you're looking for. All right. Now, again, this one, when you get whole number answers like this, that means that, again, you could have done factoring to get the answer for this one, which would have been the easier, better way to do this problem. But just so we can see it, we went ahead and plugged this thing in to the quadratic formula just so you can see how it's going to work and what's going through that part of it there. All right, so for example 2, let's give you a problem that would not factor, because, again, that's the first thing you normally want to look for. Okay. So for example 2, we've got x squared minus 6x equals 10. And just like if we're going to do solve by factoring, if you're going to work through most of these equations, now unless this thing was just x squared equals 10, then we could take the square root of both sides and we've got it. We're good to go. But we've got the extra, we've got all 3 terms. So for these, the very first thing we need to do is make sure it equals 0. So we'll subtract 10 from both sides. So we've got x squared minus 6x minus 10 equals 0. All right, and then once it equals 0, so if you try this one, what are the factors of negative 10 that could give us negative 6? Are there any?
Oh, no.
Yeah, 1 and 10 will either get you 9 or 11. 2 and 5, add them, you get 7, subtract them, you get 3. So if you go through your list of factors, there are no factors of negative 10 that's going to get you to negative 6. So this thing wouldn't work. You know, back here, if we go to this one, what are the factors of 6 that would equal 5? Or could it be 2 and 3, right? Yeah, 2 and 3. Yeah, so it could be 1 and 5, depending on the signs. But with these signs, it was going to be 2 and 3. So there was our solution. There was our factors. We used our factors to then find our solutions. You know, we had it going here. This one, there are no factors of negative 10 that's going to get us to negative 6. So factoring does not work for this one. So we're going to use our A value of 1, our B value of negative 6, and our C value of negative 10 to figure out, you know, the solutions this thing is going to have. So the first check is use our discriminant to figure out what that's going to be. Again, just to be on the safe side, when you plug this in the calculator, put all those numbers in parentheses. So that's going to be, and I'll get it correct this time, negative 6 squared minus 4 times A times C. Okay, so we're all about trying to do this as quick as we can. To get the quickest, fastest, most accurate answer, make sure when you plug these numbers in, you use the parentheses. So that's parentheses, negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 10. So we get 76. All right, key thing on this one is 76 is a positive number. So if it's a positive number, we know we're looking for 2 real solutions. So we know we're going to get 2 answers. We just got to figure out what those 2 answers are. Okay, so we take the numbers and plug them back into the quadratic formula. And again, this is where we get to go back and use. Y'all were asking about earlier about, don't we need to change the sign? When we plug it into the formula, yes, we need to do the negative of b. So when we solve this thing, it's the negative of negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 76. Because again, once we get this number, we know that's going to be the number we're going to plug into the square root here. And that's all over 2 times 1. Okay, so minus negative makes that a positive 6. For the square root of 76, let's go ahead and start to break it down on the side over here. It's even. We can divide it by 2. 76 divided by 2 should be 38. 38 divided by 2 is 19. So 76 is 2 times 2 times 19. If we use our exit buddies on that one, there's our pair of 2's. So the 2 gets out, the 19 stays on the inside. And hopefully you're going, oh, so whenever we figure out what the discriminant is, we know we can go ahead and take that number and break it down and figure out what the square root of it's going to be. Yes, because you're going to square root that number when you plug it in. So you know you just need to take this number and break it down. So it's going to be plus or minus 2 square root of 19 over 2. All right, now here's where this part comes out kind of nice. And this is where some of the answers you get will work out really nice for this part. If this was 6 over 2, you can simplify that part, correct? Make that 3. If that was 2 square root of 19 over 2, that would simplify also, right? So this part, we can break this thing up into 2 pieces. We can make it 6 divided by 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 19 divided by 2 so that we can cancel out this 2. We can do 6 divided by 2 and make that 3. So this answer really would just be 3 plus or minus the square root of 19. And for these answers, when you're using the quadratic formula, it will tell you to leave the answer in simplest radical form where you have to take it and break it down as far as you can with this. Now, somebody may be asking, what if this doesn't simplify? What if this had been a 5 on the bottom and not a 2? Well, if it was a 5 on the bottom and not a 2, you would have left it 6 over 5 plus or minus 2 square root of 19 over 5. You would just leave it just like it is there, and then that would be the answer we're looking for.
So we only cancel it out and we only cancel it out and simplify when those match up.
Correct.
Because,
Yep. Okay, now if Math Excel for some reason gets a little goofy and doesn't let you use that plus minus button in the middle, if you had to write out the answer separate, one answer would be 3 plus the square root of 19. The other answer would be 3 minus the square root of 19. It should let you use the plus minus button, but for some reason, if it's not there, then just separate it into the 2 parts where one is 3 plus, the other one's 3 minus. All right. All right, let's get at least one more here. Just make sure we're okay with it. For sure, probably one more, and then maybe another little quick one after that. Okay, so for this one, we'll go 3x squared minus x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, r equals 0, so we don't have to move anything around. We've got an a value of 3. We've got a b value of -1 and a c value of 5. And again, if you wanted just to be on the safe side, if you did 3 times 5 and got 15, there are no factors of 15 that would equal -1. Because it's 1 and 15 or it's 3 and 5, there's no way you can get those numbers to match up to be what it needs to be. So for the discriminant, again, putting the a and the b and the c all in parentheses when we plug it back in. That's going to make it -1 squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay, and we get -59. Okay, key thing is the answer is negative. And if it's negative, that means there are no real solutions.
So we just stop there.
Well, now here's where the question would depend. If they gave you the answer of, a X box and you had to fill in the blank on a B option that said, no real solutions, you would just click the B option and then you're done. But the problems we're going to have, and it's going to be kind of mixed. Some problems will let you do that. Some problems are going to say, all right, if the answer is, go back to directions back here. If there are imaginary solutions, use the variable I in your answer, which basically means, okay, this is not going to be a real answer. It's going to be an imaginary or complex answer, which means we're going to take this -59 and go ahead and plug it into our quadratic formula, and we're going to work it out from there. So we've got our -59 here. We're going to go ahead and plug that in, and we're going to work it out and see what it's going to be. So if we do the -b, that's a minus -1, plus or minus. If we try to break down 59, is there anything you can divide into 59? No, because you'd have 3 times 20 to get you 60. 5's not going to work, because 5 times 12 would be 60. If you check 7, 7's not going to work. 9's not going to work. 59 is prime. So it's kind of a good news, bad news in this case. Bad news is it's prime. The good news is it's prime, which means we don't have to simplify the -59. Okay. For that one, it doesn't simplify. So the only thing you can do is we're going to leave the square root of 59, but because it's going to be a negative, we're going to put an I variable in there somewhere. You can either put it here in front or you can put it behind it. Just make sure it's not inside the square root. I'm going to put it like way out here on the end. So it's like that. Over 2 times 3, which would make that out to be a 6. Okay, so we're going to fix the minus negative, make that a +1. We've got the plus or minus square root of 59. The i's out here on the end. And here's where you got to kind of watch through this one. And test-wise, if you write it one way and the answer was supposed to be the other way, I'll give you credit. They want you to go ahead and break this thing up into 2 parts. So go ahead and split the 6 up just to see if you possibly could simplify. For this one, there is nothing you can do to simplify. So they should let you leave the answer like that. Okay, so just watching the homework, if it gives you the option of no real solutions, you're done. But if it says if the answer is imaginary, use I in your answer. Or if it's a complex answer, use I in your answer. That way, it's letting you know, okay, I've still got to go ahead and break down this square root I've got, even though it's negative. I just need to use I in the answer when I go through this thing. All right, one last one here. So let's go x squared minus 2x equals negative 1. Okay, so again, it's got to equal 0. So very first thing is we'll add the 1 to both sides. Okay, and again, they should ask you to find the discriminant just to make sure we've got everything here. So once we've got it all equal to 0, then we've got our values. We know A is 1, our B is negative 2, and our C is 1. So we go B squared minus 4 times A times C. Okay, so plugging everything in. We've got B squared minus 4 times A times C. This comes out to be a nice, big, fat, round 0. Okay, if it's 0, how many solutions are we going to have? We got one solution. Okay. Now, we still need to go ahead and plug everything back into the quadratic formula, because this is one, it's actually really fast on this one. So if you get 0 for your discriminant, this is a quick problem, because we've got the negative of B plus or minus the square root of 0, right? Well, what happens when you square root 0? It's 0. What happens if you add 0 to something? Well, yeah, it doesn't change anything, right? So basically, this goes away, and you're left with negative B over 2A. Wait a minute. Does that look familiar? Negative B over 2A, right? Guess how we find the vertex of a quadratic? Negative B over 2A. Look at there. It pops back up again. How did that come? Wait, so you mean if this whole thing, all this stuff ties together, this negative B over 2A and the discriminant, it all ties in with graphing. It's all tied together. And some people are just going, wait, what? Yeah, so when we use the negative B over 2A to find the vertex on that last test, when we were doing, see, that's the question. Where'd it go? Where'd that question go? Anyway, can't find it now. But when we're doing that on the last test, oh, wait, here we go. So when we were doing this test, we had to do the negative B over 2A to find the vertex. Look at it right there. There's the negative B over 2A. It's the same thing we were doing because it's still working with the quadratic, still doing that same stuff. So for this one, when you do the negative B over 2 times 1, we get a positive 2 over a positive 2, which means the solution is 1. So we get one solution at this point, and that one solution, it's going to cross the x-axis. The answer, the solution, the root, the x-intercept, whatever you want to call it, is just x equals 1.
So basically, we're done with the notes for the day?
Yeah, well, write this one other thing here, and then we'll be done. Okay, so what we're going to ask you to do is they're going to ask you to complete the square, but I'm going to ask you like a very specific problem on this one, not just the general ones we do for this one. So this is going to be one of those problems where they're going to give you something like x squared plus 10x, and then they're going to give you plus, and then you're going to have a box here. And it should look that exact same way in Math Excel. You get x squared plus 10x plus, and they're basically wanting you to find out what this number would be that would go right here. Okay, so to complete the square, somebody already knows what the answer is. You're going to do basically 2 steps. Step 1, you're going to divide the b term by 2. Then step 2, you square that answer. Okay, so for this problem, we're going to take 10 divided by 2, which is 5. We're going to take that answer, 5, and we're going to square it. So the answer that would complete the square is 25. Okay, so that's the answer that would go in the box here. Now, all that they're trying to get you to do for this one, here's what they're trying, this is why they call it completing the square. That if we had that answer, if we plug this number in and we had x squared plus 10x plus 25, and they ask you to factor this thing, what are the factors of 25 that equal 10? 5 and 5, right? So you have x plus 5 and x plus 5. And if it shows up twice, we can do x plus 5 squared, right? So when I ask you to complete the square, that we rewrite it in factored form, we get something squared in your answer. Okay, now they would have you do some solution stuff for this one. We are not going to do that because it is a total pain that's not worth doing. Now, let me show you one other thing real quick. Let's change that to a minus. Just one other example. One more and then we're done. And again, this is quick. Give us 30 seconds here. So it's x squared minus 9x plus, and then we got our box to fill in the number. So step 1, it's negative 9 over 2. Doesn't simplify, right? So if it doesn't simplify, you still turn right back around and square it. So negative 9 squared is 81. 2 squared is 4. So when they ask you to complete the square, the number you would need there would be 81 over 4. So you may get a fraction answer. Now, here's the good thing is if it's a fraction answer, it's always going to be this number squared over 4 because it's always that same formula because it won't simplify because it's going to be an odd number. So it's always this number squared over 4 every single time for that thing. Okay.